just to listen to this. This is so important. God made it known to me how important this really is, especially for this time. So as people are going to come back in, I'm sure they will as their phones get alerted. But look at here. So he died, and the chiefs of Judah bowed before Joash. Now look at here. This is the dangerous thing. The chiefs bowed before Joash of Judah. It's not a good thing. And convinced him to listen to them. And what was that? Well, it says it right here. They convinced Joash to listen to him. They served Asherah poles and idols. God's wrath came for their guilt. And Adonai sent prophets to bring them back, but they admonished them. They spurned them. They mocked them. They scoffed at them. They laughed at them. And they hated them. Don't hate those that are trying to get you to do what's right in the eyes of God. Obedience and lawfulness is nothing bad. Lawlessness, guys, I'm going to tell you something. A couple of weeks ago, I heard a strong, loud voice about the time when everything was going on, the riots in the streets and things like that. God said, I'm done with this nation. Because people still didn't repent. He's like, I allowed the coronavirus and people still didn't turn. People are still in the conspiracy theories. Go ahead. You guys can hit yourselves over with frying pans over those things. I'm not going to get involved. I'm done. I'm serving God. And if it's clear that many aren't, that's your choice. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. That's your own. Now look at here. Adonai sent them, and they were prophets, and they admonished them. Zechariah said, thus says God, why do you transgress the mitzvot, the commandments of a God? You will not succeed because you have forsaken him. He will forsake you. They conspired against him by order of the king. Now, how did Joash do what was right and suddenly order to go against this prophet? They stoned him to death. And if you're speaking the word of God, they're going to stone you. And if people don't hate you, you are not speaking the word of God. Bye-bye. Keep speaking in a false Jesus, a false Yeshua. It's not going to save anybody. It's clear when the churches are so afraid with everything going on, they're bowing down to the Black Lives Matter movement. Because they're afraid. You judge these other kings. How could they be afraid and not see God? Because the churches are doing it too, because they care about their money. Or maybe their position in life. Maybe their security. I don't know. Maybe their comfort. You got your sweet little house. Nice car, nice job. It's comforting. Woo! It's comforting. It's your idol. If you're afraid to lose it, it's your idol. If you can't think about your life being without a house or being without a car, being without a job, being without your money, it's an idol. Keep judging other believers and point them out when you are transgressing the Torah. You're transgressing God. You're transgressing the covenant with Yeshua Jesus. You are an apostate believer. And he says in the end days, apostasy would come. Because they don't endorse sound doctrine. They don't want it. We want new. New. We're New Testament believers. You're a New Covenant believer. Keep saying new. So no wonder there's so much evil in this nation. No wonder the armies are coming against us. No wonder that the same spirits that are right here are coming against the people and the kings. And we're not succeeding. That's why the statues are being torn down. You're like, is that about Baal worship? It's not the same thing, guys. It's not the same thing. They're erecting new statues. Has nothing to do with it. Don't go there. The Aramean armies, look at here, came against him and brought plunder to Damascus. Brought his plunder to Damascus and executed judgment on Joash. Even bigger army for forsaking God. God allowed an even greater army because he forsook him. And if you forsake God, you continue to walk in sin, God is going to forsake you. Period. But what about he'll never leave you or forsake you? He promises to never leave or forsake you. But will you forsake him and leave him? Choose life or death. And if you think it's you holding you, know that's God holding you. Don't be so arrogant and prideful as if you did everything. You're accomplishing this. You're obeying God by your own works. It's his grace. It's his power in you. Now look at here. He says, his own servants left him sick and assassinated Joash on his bed. But because of the blood of the Kohen. He wasn't buried with the kings. He brought blood on the Kohen and the people. Look at that. Now, who replaced him? Amaziah, 25 years old, 29-year reign. He obeyed and restored Torah. The parents should not die for their children, nor the children for their parents' sin. That's Torah. You make a choice. Don't blame your parents. Children, you're young. You don't blame your parents. Don't blame them. You choose. Now look at here. But later, he obeyed and did what was right. But later, he made an idol. He became arrogant and proud. And in defiance. He became defiant towards God. After his reign, Uzziah came, 16 years old. A 52-year reign. God made him prosper. He sought God. He built up the city. He burned incense in the temple, not outside of it. He became, yes, we aren't supposed to really burn incense, guys, except it's for the temple. That's what it's for. The people that burn incense outside was actually for, guys, I know I'm making this physical right now, but it was actually for when they're serving Baal and other gods. And that's why you see it a lot. There's Christian homes that burn incense. There's pagan religions, the New Age, Buddhism, Hinduism, they all burn incense, right? It's the same thing. But it was meant for God's temple. And but spiritually, guys, are you burning incense to other gods, or are you seeking God of heaven and earth? King of Israel and Judah. Look at here. So he became strong, and his heart grew haughty. The more he became strong. So that's why he warns, be careful not to be led astray by your own pride and your arrogance, the knowledge that you have, the things that you have learned, that your obedience to God, you become haughty in the successes in life, your achievements at your jobs, climbing that career ladder, the blessings and the riches you have obtained. Don't become haughty as if you've done it yourself. Now look at here. He became strong, but his heart grew haughty and prideful. So he went up in the temple of God, and he wasn't a Kohanim. He wasn't a priest. He went up in the temple himself, believing that he has authority, that he has this power. And instantly when he was in the temple, God allowed Zerat, leprosy, to fill his hands, and fill his whole entire body. Man. Look at the next one that reigned. Jotham, 25 years, is 16 years old. Did what was right and did not enter the temple. Did what was right to God. But the people acted corruptly. He rebuilt the upper gate. No, notice, the people acted corruptly, but you're to work out your salvation in fear and trembling. You follow God. Don't worry about what the people are doing. Yes, you can speak about sin. I'm speaking of it. I'm always speaking of it. But you work out your salvation in fear and trembling. Make sure you're doing what's right in the eyes of God. Make sure you're pleasing in the eyes of God. Now look at here. He rebuilt the upper gate, the wall of Ophel, and built towns and forts and towers and fought wars and won. Notice he fought wars and won. How did he win? He did what was right with God. He fought wars and won against the Ammonites. Enemies paid him. The enemies even paid him and brought riches to him, for God was with him. Look at that. There you go again. Enemies bringing riches because they feared him. They feared the God that was with him. They feared and respected him. They're seeing something different. That's why I said people will see a light in you. That's why Israel, every time they were a light, the nations came. They bowed before him. They wanted to serve their gods. They wanted to know who is this before them? What is this God that they worship? There's something special. But when you start following the ways and blending in with the nations, accepting the ways of the nations, suddenly you don't have that respect and honor towards you. There's nothing there. Now look at here. And nobody fears you or loves you or cares. Now 20 years old, 16-year reign, Ahaz. Ahaz came in after him. He did what was right in David, like David in God's eyes, but followed the kings of Israel later on. The molten images, the Baalim, burned incense in the valley of Ben Hinnom. Burned children in the fire. Offered sacrifices and burned incense on high places and hills and lofty trees. God gave them to the hand of the king of Aram, which is Assyria. 120,000 people died because they forsaken God. Don't think for a second, guys. David sinned. And because of his decision, many people died because of his choice to fall away from God. But yet he had a heart like unto God, because when the moment he sinned and realized how disgusting and wicked he is, how unworthy he is before God, he forgave him and he returned to him and saw him with all his heart, soul, and mind. But there's consequences. It's going to affect everybody in your life. Everybody. It's going to affect 120,000 people died because they've forsaken God. Israel took 200,000 men in spoil. The king. They intended to enslave them, their own. Now look, Israel came against them and took 200,000 men in spoil. They intended to ensnare their own people. They transgressed. Even, look at this. God had mercy even though they sinned. Look at this. Even all the sins with Ahaz. Look at this. And the people. Look at this. They transgressed God. Now God's wrath was upon their guilt. Why? Because they tried to enslave their own. Tried to enslave Judas's people, their own people. They released the riches upon hearing what the prophet said and warned them. They released the riches and the people and clothed the naked. They were naked. They stripped them all down, and that's to basically humiliate them completely. And gave them food and drink and donkeys and gave them clothes. So they turned. Look at that. Israel even turned. They heard the word of the prophet. The Edomites invaded Judah even after that. Look at this. Even though God had mercy right there and told them, so that sin will not be upon you, release them so that they are enslaved, your own people. That's against God's ways. Now look at this. The Edomites invaded Judah and asked for Assyria's help. The Philistines raided towns. God humbled them and they trespassed God. Assyria kings struck Judah instead of strengthening them. Because Judah went to align themselves with Assyria, the king struck Judah instead of strengthening Ahaz. Gave him riches in the temple treasures. It did not help him. I'm sorry. Look at this. Look at this, guys. Even though, look, man, I hope you guys can see this. I know this is a lot. I'm teaching a lot here, guys, but this is so important. During his distress, he acted more unfaithful and sacrificed the god of Damascus. What is the gods of Damascus? I'm about to get into this. Because gods of Aram helped them. I will sacrifice to them because they'll help me. But it caused Israel's downfall. Now, why do you think there's churches going with Black Lives Matter? There's people following other gods. They're following other Jesus, a different Jesus being preached, a different Yeshua being preached, a different God being preached. And look what's happening. They said, oh, these gods will help me. I'll follow what they're following because I trust in them because they'll help me. How did that help for them? They gave them riches, right? They thought riches was going to save. Didn't help them. It caused Israel's downfall because of that. He collected temple treasures and utensils and made altars every corner of Jerusalem, town, and Judah to burn incense to other gods. He provoked God. Look at that. Bad. Now look at here. You might be wondering, guys. You might be wondering, what is the gods? Why did they go after them? Uzziah sought Seir's gods, right? The Edomites. Cus, Yahweh. Well, there's another name for God, which is Yahweh. And they found in their artifacts YHWH, so a mimic God. This is what I'm saying. Remember, I told you the Edomites they had even a temple to God, and that's why a lot of the Israelites fell away to them, because it looked like God, but it wasn't. Same way today in Christianity and Judaism and Messianic, a lot of it looks like God. It mimics him, but it's not him. But how do you know? You're not going to know if you don't seek God with our heart, soul, and mind. He's not going to come close to you, so you're going to come close to man. And you're going to come close to this deceiving spirits, just like it happened with Ahaz and the 400 prophets. They didn't want to listen to the one. Now look at here. Du, Shara, which is a goddess, and El. El is another name. Baal and Asherah. Ahaz, the gods of Damascus. Hadad. Sin, Ishtar, Shemesh, Tammuz, Bel, Nergal, El is another one, storm god, and Anat, Atah. So, Hadad is a god of storms, thunder, and rain. So they thought, back then, if we know more science of what the storms were today. Now, back then, it was fearful. The sea, thunder, and lightning, and thunder, and storms. So they thought they could serve a God and have control over these things and not be harmed by it. And they also thought they served these gods in order to replenish their riches, their money, their blessings, right? So, Sin was a god of wisdom. How many love knowledge? Astronomy, astrology, the moon. It was the wife of Ishtar. Supposedly. The crescent moon. How many people see people wearing the crescent moon today? It's a lot of New Age, right? I see Christians even wearing it. I see Jews wearing them too. Crescent moon. Shamash was a wise judge and lawgiver. So that's why people come up with their own judgments and their own law. They, whatever seems fit to them. It was the brother of Ishtar and the son of Sin. So it was a sun god. So Bel was a god of earth and mankind. So they believe that this God created all mankind and earth. And I'm about to tell you why people worship these things. I see people worshiping the earth today and the creation in the earth. Everything in it. Everything that mankind can create. The works of their hands. Nergal, which was a hero god, was a god of plague and war, pestilence and destruction and death. They believed that this God protected them and won in wars. So now you see why other people, these kings of Israel and Judah, would go and serve them. So we see El, also Molech, Yahweh or Baal, is supreme God. The God of the hills, the storm god. Okay? Now Anat was a god of sex and sexual love and fertility and hunting and war. It was considered the virgin, sister of Baal. Now look, Tammuz, which is where you get Easter from. Ishtar is Easter. Fertility, new life in spring. Yeah, your Easter is dead pagan, guys. You serve a false Jesus. I'm going to put it out there. Power in grain, food, produce. Look at this, produce and food. Health, nature. Shepherd, beauty, sex, war, justice, political power. No wonder we worship our leaders. No wonder we want good health. We love food. We love the riches. We love good health. We love everything that we can see and touch. We love our attraction. We're so focused in the gym on our muscles and our beauties and getting a big butt and muscles. No wonder you all worship Easter, because you all are focused on the same stuff. What about these kings? No wonder you can't see it, because you're serving another God. You aren't going to see it because only God can reveal it to you. And you're not going to know what sin is. This is all spiritual. Why did people physically worship some of these things? Because it was spiritual, guys. There's a spiritual aspect to everything. And a reason why people serve these things. I'm going to turn this on so it gets a little bit brighter here. Now look. Idolatry is always breaking of God's laws. Always. Idolatry. This is the biggest thing. This is why Paul always said idols and sexual morality. This is the two things that are always big in everyone's life. So, and it was a disregard for it in the land. So they hated God's laws and disregarded it. That's why people that are speaking the truth, they disregard it and push it aside. They mock them, scoff at them, laugh at them. They make fun of them. And they always questioning, what about this? What about this? Listen, here it goes. So, Baal and Asherah was a marriage destruction of God's people. Asherah and Baal were fertility in the land, so blessings, riches, money, wealth, prosperity, success, sex, lewdness. No wonder nobody knows how to cover up. Go to the beach, is a bunch of naked people everywhere. Yes, women, cover your butts up. That's not, it's a bathing suit. It's not really a bra and panties. Yeah, it is. Go ahead, unfollow. Keep it in the bedroom. Promiscuous, lacking legal and moral restraint. No self-control, guys. No morality. No legal restraint. Breaking God's laws, breaking the law of the land, especially sexually. Baal worship what also had to do with drunkenness. They had Thanksgiving with wine, right? It was that Thanksgiving is praising with wine and alcohol. Parties, licentiousness, seductive, intimate, and praise and worship. That's why in a lot of these churches, that's why you guys could listen to Hillsong and Chris Tomlin, because it's seductive. They bring down the lights down low. It's, it's nice. It's great. Seductive. It's pretty much put on some Barry White in the church's house of God. I mean, just have sex with all the demons. Why don't you? That's exactly what's going on. Like, this music, contemporary Christian music, is not saving you. And anybody that can listen to that, you have a big issue in your life. Big problem. Big problem. You're worshiping Baal, you're worshiping Asherah, and no wonder everybody can listen to people like Lauren Daigle and be all right with it. Cool. Great job, guys. You guys are really doing good, but you judge everybody else, right? Okay. Move along. Hezekiah was 25 years old and had a 29-year reign. He did what was right in God's eyes, just like David. He repaired the doors of the house of Adonai. He was the next one in line, guys. He brought in the priests. He told them to sanctify yourselves and remove defilements out of the holy place. Unfaithful fathers turned away from their from basically the places from unfaithful fathers and turned their faces from God. Shut the door, put out the lamps. They didn't burn incense or offer burnt offerings in the holy place. Look at that. God's wrath was upon them. See, this is what the unfaithful fathers did before, guys. Before Hezekiah, they were unfaithful fathers, turned their faces from God. They shut the door of the temple, put out the lamps. Remember in Revelation, God says, be careful to obey him, lest I come and, put out your lamps, remove your lampstand. This is what he's saying. But people are shutting out the lamp themselves, putting it out. They don't care to keep their lamps burning with oil. You're a foolish virgin, or you a wise one? Are you shutting the door of God? He stands at the door and knock. Anybody hear his voice, open up and let him in. You'll dine with him, right? But it's your choice. You got to choose to open up that door. Yeah, it's work. You got to choose to open up that door. You got to choose to allow him to rule your life, sanctify you, cleanse you, purify you, and make you holy. And your desire will be like his. They didn't burn incense or They didn't burn incense or offer burnt offerings in the holy place, but instead it was outside. God's wrath was upon them. It's in my heart to make a covenant with Adonai. This is what Hezekiah was saying, the God of Israel, so that his anger may turn away from us. Do not be negligent. Do not be slow or hasty, guys. Do not be uncareful. Be careful, he's saying. They purified everything and prostrated. After sacrificing, they knelt down and worshiped and sang praises with gladness and bowed and worshiped God. Now that you sacrifice and bring sacrifice thanks offerings, all whose heart were willing, 70 bulls, 100 rams, 200 lambs, by the congregation, people brought their own sacrifice to God, their own riches, their own blessings in the land, the things that they have cherished. This is their own materialisms, guys. They brought it to God. Look at this. That's why I'm giving you the numbers here. So did you see it just wasn't just one or that's a lot of people, guys. You're seeing even more than that. As sacrifices, 600 bulls, 3,000 sheep. Drink and fat and peace offerings. At every offering, they all rejoice by what God has done and accomplished so suddenly. He can do that, guys, in your life so suddenly, quick. Look what he did. He celebrated Pesach, Passover, not Easter. Put Easter aside. 2,000 bulls, 7,000 sheep. I don't see an Easter ham. I see the Passover lamb here. Look at this. Restored Torah. 2,000 bulls, 17,000 sheep. That's a lot of people dedicated to God. I don't see nobody's dedicated to God when there's a stupid TV in your living room. You say, I don't worship those false gods. Yes, you do. It's Sodom and Gomorrah, Baal and Asherah straight up in your stupid living room. You're better off burning down your whole entire house because it's no good for you. Look at this. What do you think dedication is? Do not be negligent. Everything on TV, guys, spend hours watching stuff online that is not of God whatsoever, has no moral conduct or values or character of God or any principles according to God's kingdom, but you allow it in your temple. You say, look at them. Look at you. I see pig sacrifices all over in your temple. There's a spiritual aspect to why people follow other gods. It's in your living room. The Asherah poles right there, that's why there's sex on your TV. That's why you're having false gods play out your TV from other preachers and out of your phone. Say, no, it's not. Yeah, you're bowing down to and worshiping them rather than God of heaven and earth, Israel and Judah. You're unconsecrating yourselves to make yourselves holy. It's tainted. Your utensils are no good use. Your works are disgusting. Make sure you're pure before God. Careful. You don't have to sit down and be sad all your life, with your head down. That doesn't do any good. You should be joyful and happy, but yet you should be at a time where you're crying before God at times. There's seasons for everything, guys. But don't do what the nations in the world is doing. Look what he said. Celebrate Pesach, Passover, 2,000 bulls, 17,000 sheep. People are bringing this stuff, guys. Restore Torah. Restore the Kohanim and the priests and the Levites. This has nothing to do. The temple's done away with. You're done away with. Because if this doesn't matter to you, then you're done away with. How can you say? Because if you just care, you don't think the temple has any value to you spiritually, then this isn't going to do anything to you. There's about 1,000 churches around your state, your country, or in your land, and there's thousands of videos you can go watch. So feel free. Of all other false preachers. So, look at this. He restored the Sabbath, the new moons, the Moedim, God's Jewish holidays, his holy days, not the pagan ones. Oh, yes, I get it. Your mommy and your daddy, it's been in your family for all your life. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, so what happened to the other God what happened over here? What happened to the woman? What happened to the woman over here? What did she do? Oh, I'll toss the page over here. So, look right here. What did Ahaziah do? Led people to do what was wrong. Let them do what was wrong. Just because your mothers and your fathers it's been passed down generations, so we got to keep this culture. We got to keep this practice. Great, Christmas and Easter, just great. It's just all harmless fun. Yeah, so is hell. Better start checking your heart, guys. You're not going to be serving Christmas and Easter in God's kingdom. This has nothing to do with this. I'm just going there because it has to do with a much deeper moral issue. There's much more. You're probably watching TV and spending all your time in comfort and at ease. That was the same sin as Sodom and Gomorrah and the ones that followed in that way. Just ease. Comfort, ease, easy going. Can't have nothing to upset my lifestyle. I'm going to tell you, it's going to change. Make sure your house and your riches, your savings, your bank accounts, 401ks, investments, portfolios, all these things are not what you hold dear. Oh, I started a business? Great, great. Make sure it's not your idol because it's not going to last long, guys. Yeah, it will. Yeah, at the height of prosperity, I've said this many times, it's going to come crashing down because nobody's seeking God with all their heart, soul, and mind. I don't see any of this today. Very few. There's a remnant. But God brought destruction on the lands, preserve the remnant. Save the remnant. What do you think is coming? No rapture. No pre-tribulation rapture, guys. I'm saying be ready. Be ready. No matter what. He's coming back to redeem those that are seeking him, patiently waiting. They are not found with spot or blemish. Their gowns are white. White. Now look at here. He removed the incense altars and altars burned in the Kidron and burned the altars in the Kidron Valley, which represents hell. Made divisions of Kohanim and Levites. Now, notice when Paul says don't create divisions. What is factions? What is divisions? Divisions were always people that were basically families in the house of God. He said don't create your own. What do you think Korah's rebellion did? I spoke about that in an earlier video. Korah's rebellion made divisions of their own divisions apart from God and apart from Moses. You see it? This is what he said. He made divisions according to the families of the Kohanim and the Levites. So are you in the Kohanim and the Levitical family? Are you a child of God? So I would think you'd want to restore these things too. Not create your own division. And I get it, yes. There's people in the Torah, Hebrew roots, and all these, roots movements, messianic movements that try to boast about their Torah keeping, their holy days and Shabbats and all these, then they're just living at comfort and ease and they just judge everybody as if they're more righteous. There's people who are righteous, guys. They're more deeper in sin than anybody knows. But because they're so prideful and arrogant, they can't even see it. Make sure that's not you. If it sounds like I am, guys, you have to know my heart. I know God does. It might sound like I'm preaching to you, but guys, we're going to have a wake-up call. And I'm going to tell you that the people that you're trusting in is not going to be there when it comes. Most of you aren't even going to have a chance to even prepare. Now look at here. He gave his own portion. Look at that. Hezekiah gave his own portion and assets for burnt offerings. I don't see people doing that much, especially a king. Made portions allotted to the Kohanim and the Levites and devoted themselves to the Torah of God. Now look at that. Now what's so important about that? Now he's making sure that they get an allotted produce, money. It's basically money, guys, so that they could eat, so they could take care of their families, right? That's what it was for. Now, the thing is today that that's what the basically your tithes and offerings are supposed to go to. But when you have churches that say that the laws of God are done away with, but yet we want to keep this 10% law, they just completely lost it. Dead. And that most of those non-denominations, I don't want to pick on any, Pentecostals and Charismatic, that's the way they are today. They don't follow God's laws. It's all about signs and wonders. But they say, oh, let's keep the new covenant, have faith in the new covenant, and be born again, accept Jesus in your heart, but they don't truly believe. They truly believe they'd be able to see this stuff. If they truly believe, they would not be saying, tithe 10%, the law is done away with and it's abolished, and you can keep Christmas and Easter. No, they're doing it because they're afraid. They're afraid to hurt people and lose money and lose riches, so they're serving other gods, just like some of you are right now. And I don't care if you unfollow. There's a church down the street for you. I'm working out my salvation, fear and trembling. You choose. I'm just saying what God tells me to speak. I don't care what your opinions. I don't. I care about His. But listen, guys, I'm merciful to understand some of you might be struggling. But you're going to have to get alone with Him. Some of you aren't to the point of seeking Him with all your heart, soul, and mind. You have to get there. Now look at here. Stop making an excuse for your sin and return to His laws, His rulings, His ways, His covenants, His ways. You wonder why you're still struggling with Easter, keeping Easter and Christmas and things like that. I know I'm picking on that right now. It's not just about that. Because your heart is not on God completely. If you're trying to mix with the churches, Christianity and Messianic Judaism, you're not fully on God. Make sure you're at peace with Him and seeking Him. Don't worry about what people think. Don't worry about trying to save everybody. You can't. Only He can. Look. Israel gave generously first fruits of their grain and wine and oil and honey. These are very expensive things in those times, guys. And all the produce of the field and the tithes in abundance. The children of Israel and those who lived in the towns of Judah brought tithes and bulls and sheep and sacred things and consecrated to God and piled them in heaps. I don't see anybody piling them in heaps. Some of you are tithing, some of you are giving, but some of you are giving to the false churches to build your stupid false synagogues at the temples of Baal. Your churches just have Christmas parties, games and sports in it, Super Bowl parties. Christmas, Easter, I don't know. We're just going to keep giving to them. Yeah, you're worshiping Baal. Keep giving to them. Great. Great job. Okay. The children, so look, Hezekiah did all that was good, right, and true before God. Every work he undertook in the service to God and in the Torah and in the mitzvot, his commandments to seek his God. He did wholeheartedly and succeeded. Now, if you will not succeed unless your whole heart is in it to obey God, it's not a bunch of legalistic things, observances. What laws do I need to follow? If your laws, his thing is, no desire will be to watch TV and these worldly things and go in the ways of the world or be friends with worldly people and hang out at the clubs, hang out at the bars and have sex out of marriage and look at porn. These things will not be a desire. Sports will not rule your life anymore. The things that once ruled your life and your mind and captivating you brought so much joy and entertainment and happiness in your life, no longer matters. This is filling your heart with God, with all your heart, soul, and mind. If you fall into sin, happen to guys, you don't stay there. You get back up. You rebuild those walls. You consecrate to God. You purify yourself. You repent from your sins. He is faithful. He'll return like that. You have to choose it. Now look at here. Now, Sennacherib, I don't know, king of Assyria came. Hezekiah blocked off the springs. Whoa, what happened? Oh, that's nice. Okay. Wow, that's bright. Sorry, guys. He blocked off the springs, the wadi, and rebuilt the wall. Added another wall. He said, Chazak, do not be afraid. His arm is one of flesh. Ours is Adonai Eloheinu. He says, their arm is, the king of Assyria is an arm of flesh. Flesh. But ours is of God. Look at that. Giving him glory. So notice when the armies come against you in the future, guys, when things rise up and grow restless, you got to be so secure in your faith that no fear, no chazak, do not be afraid. Be strengthened in God and know that his right hand is with you. But you will know if it's not when you're struggling with sin and you're walking in the ways of the kings of Israel that fell rather than in Judah. That did right in the ways of God and not evil. Now look at here. His arm, look. Lachish was under siege. I can't even say that word right now. King of Assyria sent servants. What are you relying that you would stay in Jerusalem under siege? So they went against Lachish and basically was sieging them. So he sent servants to Jerusalem. Now hear me out. This is very important. He said, what are you relying that you would stay in Jerusalem under siege? Is not Hezekiah misleading you? Be careful. Isn't this man that you follow, this preacher, this teacher, misleading you? To let you die by famine and thirst, saying Adonai Eloheinu will deliver us from the hand of the king of Assyria? Look at that. You see what he's doing? Hezekiah was saying, do not fear because you guys follow God. And he's trying to put doubt in their minds, fear in their minds. Saying that he's lying to you so that they trust in him. Do not trust in the devil. Do not trust in demons. Do not trust in familiar spirits that will lead you astray. Has not the same Hezekiah removed his high places, his altars, and commanded Judah and Jerusalem, saying, you shall worship before one altar, and upon it you shall burn incense? See what he's doing? Yes, guys, there's really one way, one Torah, one way, one truth, and one life, one Yeshua, one Jesus. It's not a different one, guys. It's not a bunch of paganisms. It's not a different practice. The law is not done away with. It's not nailed to the cross. It's not a different law for Jews and Gentiles. It's one law for all. You choose what you're going to follow. The law is spiritual. If you accepted Jesus Yeshua into your heart, he will come into your life and sanctify you and cleanse you. He is faithful. But if you watch your own way and follow in their church too and justify your actions, you will not be saved when judgment comes. I'm speaking it the way it is. This is the way it is. And he says, did he really say that? Just like Satan said in the garden, did God really say that you can't eat of this tree? That this is really not good for you? You can become like gods. He's trying to keep you from seeing the way of being like God. Seeing what is right. You can eat this. It's good. Eat this fruit. Do it. It's okay. That's what he's saying. He's trying to tempt them. You shall worship before one altar, and upon it you shall burn incense. One? Why one? Why not many? You see it? Do you see this? It's spiritual, guys. Many gods, many worships, many house of worships. That's why people are going to Gilgal, to Beersheba, to Bethel. Because they're going to serve other gods, trying to be blessed, have better in life, amount to something greater. They didn't fit their lifestyle. So when they didn't like something in Bethel, they went to Gilgal. They didn't like Gilgal, they went to Beersheba. Beersheba, they went back to Bethel. They went everywhere, guys, trying to find something that's suitable to them. So that's why they served these other gods, because that's why they came before the kings and said, we don't like this way. We want an easier yoke. We want it easier. We don't want to remove the burden because God's ways are a burden. Is somebody people saying that today? Let me get an amen. I'm telling you right now, some people are saying his ways are a burden. He says in Jeremiah, because the burden of Adonai, how will make you a burden and cast you off. Keep saying his laws are a burden. You're a burden to him and this world because you keep following sin instead of dying to yourself. Look at here. We're going to keep going. And I love this living water. Not this water. This is just perishable. Guys, okay, so he says, do you not know what I and my fathers have done to all the peoples of this land? This is a serious saying. This. Look at this. The peoples of this land were the gods of the nations. Were the gods of the nations ever able to deliver their land out of my hand? Was your God ever able to deliver you? I'm going to tell you something too. If you have no power to overcome sin, you're following a false god. If you think you can listen to me and just get my oil and say, I can follow, I'm going to hear what he says, be protected, you're not, because you're not dying to yourself. You might know it's true, but you're still listening to this John Shlomo down the street that's telling you something that you want to hear. And you're balancing. How much are you going to waver between two opinions? Serve God, you sacrifice to him, you serve him alone. If you're going to serve the other nations, you serve them. Stop wavering between two opinions, sitting on the fence. You either hot or you're cold. You can't be lukewarm, or you go over here to where it's cold, and eventually where you're cold and lukewarm, you'll end up in the hell's fire, in the Kidron Valley. You will be burnt up, guys. Look at this. So now, do not let Hezekiah deceive you or mislead you. Like this. Do not believe him. Be people telling me, don't believe me right now. I'm just reading the Bible. Go ahead. There's a church on the street. There's millions of YouTube videos and little ministers. You choose. I can't save you. So now, do not let Hezekiah deceive you or mislead you. Like this. Do not believe him. For no God of any nation or any kingdom has been able to deliver his people from my hand. Look at that. Look what he's saying. Look at the arrogance and trying to make them doubt. And from the hand of my fathers, how much less will God deliver you from my hand? Look at that. He's saying your God is false. He's trying to make you trust in him. Why do you think there's people aligning with Black Lives Matter right now? Why do you think there's people going into churches and finding comfort in them? The same way you do in your houses. Yes, your house is a blessing. God bless you, maybe. But you find so much comfort that you're afraid to lose it. If you were to lose it and you don't have any place for your children to live, you're going to freak out. Well, maybe it's God's will that all of our children is going to be taken from us, just like in the rail cars in the Holocaust. Stop worrying. When you're dead, guess where you're going? Train your children to be fearless, guys. Strengthen them. Know the power of God, that if they obey God, God is going to be with them even till death. You got to strengthen your children. But no, we just want our children to go to college and pay their way and keep telling them, great job, and pat them on the back and having sweet little, he just graduated, so let's have a party. You see what I'm saying? Let's keep them in ballerina and soccer and basketball and baseball and football and have all these different things and gymnastics and keep our kids so preoccupied that they have no earthly good for God's kingdom. This is the problem. Speaking the truth. King of Assyria, listen. I'm speaking to somebody right now. You're hating what I'm saying right now, but when judgment comes, and it will. Say when? Keep watch. I'm telling you right now, it's going to come. And when it comes, everything that you're going to realize how faithless you were. Keep going to your church and saying, I keep Sabbath and Messianic this and that, and I keep the holy days and showing off to your families, take sweet little pictures and showing off to everybody. Great. Cool. You made a faction. You made a division of your own. Great. Want a cookie? I'll give you, slap your back, make you feel good, right? No. When judgment comes, you're going to realize how much you didn't believe. And when your kids are screaming, guess I'm telling you. But there's a pre-tribulation rapture, right? Okay. Again, follow this false churches. Sacrifice the bow, I guess. So look. King Assyria and his servants reviled Adonai, wrote letters, spoke further to the people of Jerusalem to terrify and frighten them. They spoke against God as if he's the gods of the peoples of the earth made by human hands. Look at that. Isn't Assyrian gods how many gods they worship made by human hands? Look what he's doing. This is how the devil works. That's not the true God. This is the right way. Look at here. Look what he says. Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah cried out and prayed to heaven. Prayed to God. God sent an angel who annihilated every mighty warrior, commander, and officer in the camp with the king of Assyria. Why? Because they dedicated their hearts, guys. Look at here. Hezekiah and the people dedicated their hearts to God. Look, when destruction came, they didn't even have to fight. The king went to his land in disgrace. His own children struck him down in the house of his gods with the sword. Look at that. The king of Assyria, his own kids struck him down because they realized that God is not with him. Their God is false. You got to make sure that you know the true God. Many brought offerings to the God in Jerusalem and valuable gifts to Hezekiah and the king of Judah. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? He saw God. He didn't seek to align himself with anybody else or fear. He said, don't be afraid. Chazak, don't be afraid. Do not fear them. Hezekiah became deathly ill, though. Look at here. So don't say that illness is, from doing sin. It's not. Guys, there even Elisha, guys, died from sickness. A holy, righteous prophet, right? He died from sickness. It's not because of sin. We live in a fallen, sinful world, but God came to redeem us. So when we are out of this earthly body that is ruled by flesh, we will be spirit like him to those who remain with him. Makes sense? So Hezekiah became deathly ill. We just live in a fallen world. I'm sorry, guys. As Hezekiah became deathly ill, he prayed to Adonai, who gave him a sign in response. But what happened, guys? After all of this, but Hezekiah did not respond with favor done to him. His heart became haughty. Guys, ladies, I'm here to tell you that any of us, it can happen to any of us. It's not where you start, it's where you end. Now look at here. Wrath came upon Jerusalem and Judah. Hezekiah humbled himself for the pride in his heart, both he and Jerusalem's inhabitants. So the wrath of God did not fall upon them in those days. Now remember, guys, a lot of times people became like the kings. So a lot of times you will become the teacher who you heap yourselves up with. So either you're going to be faithful or faithless. But not always did the people follow the ways of the kings. They sometimes followed the ways of the foreign nations. But look at here. Hezekiah had abundance of riches. So, even after, guys, he more grew after he repented from his pride. Look, the wrath of God did not fall upon him in those days, but Hezekiah had abundance of riches. Ambassadors and princes of Babylon came, and God left him alone. Look at that. He left him alone. Why? He was testing him. See what was really in his heart. He says, to know all that was in his heart. They came to inquire about the wonder in the land. And how did he grow so rich? Everything that has accomplished. What did his God do to make him get to this place? Oh, really? They didn't care. That wasn't what it was really about. So God allowed these people to come to test him, to know what was in his heart. In Isaiah 39, what happened? Isaiah the prophet was there and he warned them. This is in 2 Chronicles 32:24, guys. Isaiah the prophet in Isaiah 39, he says, what did these men say? Where did they come? What did they say? What did they see in your palace? Everything, Hezekiah said. In my palace, there is nothing they did not see among my treasures. Why do you think they were doing this, guys? Why? Some of you right now, this is where I'm going. You boast of your family members, you boast your colleagues, your co-workers about your house, your riches, your savings. You show off your riches and the things that you bought, your boat, your cars. You show off your successes and the things that you have achieved. This is exactly what he's saying. This is his falling. God wanted to see what was his heart. If this is you, if you feel prideful about what you accomplish and the things that you acquire, the things that you own and the materialisms and the things that you have achieved and climbing that career ladder, you're right there. Okay, here. He showed off because he wanted to show off. He was prideful about the things he has done in his life. Isaiah said, hear the word of Adonai. A time will come when everything in your palace and all your predecessors have stored up until this day will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says the Lord. Look at here. Some of your descendants born to you will be taken away and will become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. What is a eunuch? They chop off your penis and you're a servant with, that's what it is. So the king of it will be a servant in the palace of the king of Babylon. The word of the Lord has spoken. He said the word of the Lord has spoken is good. Hezekiah said that because he thought there would be peace and security in his lifetime. See the selfishness? It's not where you start, guys. It's where you end. Now look at here. Manasseh was the next king right after, right? 2 Chronicles 33. He was 12 years old in a 55-year reign. He did evils in the eyes of God like the abominations of the nations. I know this is a lot, guys, but please, this is important. He rebuilt the high places of Hezekiah, demolished. Now notice, guys, you see the trend over and over. These people are doing over and over. Somebody would obey. Somebody falls away. A generation obeys. A generation disobeys. It keeps going back and forth. This is why God is being patient. He sent his son to redeem us, right? But this is the thing. He's coming to make a new heaven and new earth. He's coming to destroy the wicked. This is the way he's coming back as king of Israel. Not king of any other nation. Israel. Israel's way. Theocratic government. One way. One way. One Torah. One law. No other way. So is it right now. Even though the world makes exceptions and makes different ways, many ways for many people, it's not this way, guys. There's one way. The gate is narrow and very few find it, but the path to destruction is broad and many find it. So he says right here, he erected the altars of Baalim, made Asherah poles, bowed down to all. This is Manasseh. All the hosts of heaven and worshiped them, built altars in the house of Adonai and worshiped them, built 2 altars in the courtyard, and passed children through the fire, practiced witchcraft, divination, and sorcery, and consulted ghosts and spiritists. This may not be some of you guys, but I'm just giving you an example. Guys, going to kick me out? Come back in and I'll finish up. I'm getting close to being done, guys. So come right back in.